And now it's time to call upon our next speaker, Mr. Ehsan Khazeni of Iran, and he's going to speak on universal Nakshatras.
Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm going to talk about a very, very old technique of Indian astrology. Of course, all of you have a great knowledge of Nakshatras, perhaps better than me. But today I'm going to talk about Nakshatras in a very different point of view. I call it the way to understand the inner self. Next, please. All of you might have heard the story of the warrior who needs to go and save the princess. So he actually needs to kill the dragon and then find the princess. So this is a story of many of us. Each and every of we have a story to fulfill, have a mission to fulfill. So all of us have actually have a dragon to kill, and maybe have a princess to find. Next, please. Yes, in Mahabharata, in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna goes, actually, Krishna helps Arjuna to fulfill his journey of life. In Greek mythology, we have Jason and Argonauts, many different gods of Greece, Egypt, help Arjuna, help Jason to find the golden fleece. Next, please. And there's a very nice quote by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or touched. They are felt with the heart. So, actually, I think, in my perspective, Nakshatras is the biggest key for finding the inner vision and inner self. Next, please. Okay, I call this system universal Nakshatras because I think, you know, when you started learning about Nakshatras, you first see, oh, these are 27 Sanskrit names. There are lots of, you know, definitions, which they are also Sanskrit. You need to learn about, for example, gunas, ganas, nadis, and lots of different things which are associated with Nakshatras. So, thousands of Sanskrit words you need to learn, and then after that, when you want to interpret that things to a person, you need to use that Sanskrit terms. As a non-Indian person, it's really hard for me and for Western astrologers as well to memorize all these Sanskrit terms. So I started to somehow translate the concept which is behind that thing. So maybe in a universal form. So I have a question. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Karl Marx, and Descartes. What is different with these people and, for example, we? These are the world-known personalities which might be my relatives, might be my family, might be a person I regularly may meet. But what makes them different? What I could find is that people need to activate the goals of their Nakshatras. In this lecture, I will show that all these successful people, not only these people, but many other successful people, could activate their Nakshatras and could fulfill the goal of their Nakshatras next. Okay, there are very few simple rules that I'm going to follow. Each Nakshatra has some admissible qualities of its past Nakshatra as a support. Okay, for example, if someone is a Bharani Nakshatra, it already has a very fine quality of Ashwini Nakshatra as a support. Each Nakshatra tries to achieve its own significations. So, we all know about this one. And each Nakshatra suffers from lack of its very next Nakshatra's quality. Bharani Nakshatra doesn't have the quality of Kritika. And when actually Bharani Nakshatra always feels lack of things which Kritika presents. Next, please. The next rule actually implements the first one. according to rule number 1, if two planets are well placed in two adjacent nakshatras, they extremely intensify each other in abilities and strengths. Having two planets in a sign is very good. We know that the conjunctions makes the planets more stronger. But if they are in two continuous nakshatras, it makes them even more powerful. Having few planets in one nakshatra also reinforces the nakshatra's qualities, but on the other side, lack of very next nakshatra's quality will be deeply felt. So, in my experience, having many planets in a single nakshatra can make the person feel lack of the quality of next nakshatra. Next, please. This is very familiar for you. The first 9 nakshatras are Rajasic nakshatras. The next 9 nakshatras are Tamasic, and then Sattvic nakshatras. Here I call them personal, social, and global nakshatras. I will explain it. Next, please. This system can be used in personal interpretation, Prashna, Muhurta, or other techniques. It also works well in chart classifications and finding the Lagna nakshatra. Okay. Actually, you can use this system in every area of astrology. I have a few small samples of each and every usage of these things. Next, please. And finally, we can check out all 12 nakshatras for all charts. See, we have 12 houses, we have 12 signs, and it's not important if there any planet in the sign or not. If we have a sign somewhere in the chart, we need to use it. So we can use all the empty nakshatras. We can check out all the nakshatras in all charts. I will explain. Next. Okay. There is a very, very easy definition for Ashwini nakshatra. We know that Ashwini nakshatra ruled by Ashwini Kumaras, and there are lots of Purana stories about these things. My first experience about nakshatras was meeting with an Indian astrologer in Rishikesh. I met him and became interested to learn about nakshatras. Then I started to read the Ashwini in a book. I just read one sentence. Ashwini symbolized by a horse head. That was the only thing I knew about nakshatras. And a client came. It was a friend actually. He came and asked me to read his chart. Next, please. Yes. I opened his chart and saw that his ascendant is Ashwini. I asked him, what's your idea about horses? And he said, how could you know? I said, I'm just asking, this is something I read in the books. And he said, no, how can you know? Because the horse is the most important thing in my life. He was a horse trainer in the royal court, and he was actually someone who was working on the genetics of horses. He wrote several books on horses, and it was, something really impressive for me. Then I searched my charts, and I saw that I have an actress friend. She also is Ashwini. I called her, do you like horses? And she said, yes. I like horses. And it was actually my very beginning story of Ashwini. Then I started to collect lots of hundreds of Ashwini charts. And nobody, it doesn't mean that every Ashwini person actually should ride horses or something like this. So it was a problem. Many Ashwini charts, yes, they love horses, and it was meaningless for many others. So what was the exact meaning of Ashwini? I thought about it, and yes, there are lots of symbolic meanings behind Ashwini, and it's about selflessness, it's about health. Ashwini Kumaras were the cosmic healers, so it's about healing, about health, medicine, support, care, and the most important one is survival, because being survived is the most important thing we can think of. Life is the best gift of God in this world. So Next to this. Yes, he's an artist. He also has moon in Ashwini, ascendant is Dhanisha, and Mars is in Mula. As you can see, he does work, woodcrafts, and he was working only in his own house, very isolated. Then suddenly his talents was discovered, and by making this work, he became fully, famous. The National Heritage Institute actually gave him a PhD and bought all his works as a national heritage. You can see how the energy of Ashwini can be seen in this world. Mars and the warrior, Ketu, and the horse. Next, please. Yes. So it was a question that the symbol of Bharani Nakshatra actually was Yoni. So how could I ask someone, do you like Yoni? So it was a question to find an actually symbolic meaning of Yoni. So I said, okay, it's the place that babies are coming from. So where do the babies are coming from? That's a question many of you actually might have asked from your parents, or children might ask from you. So actually, there are some sciences that are trying to answer this question. I think the identity, who am I, is the main question of Bharani Nakshatra. Psychology, history, genetics, religion, these are the sciences which are trying to answer this question. Biology as well. These are the things that are trying to answer the enigma of Bharani. Next, please. Carl Gustav Jung has moon in Bharani, and his chart is really wonderful. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. So he was a psychologist. He was working on identity, on the archetypes of the mind. And I think right now the ascendant might be Punarvasu, is it? Somebody please check it. Punarvasu. And yes, next please. Karl Marx. There is something really interesting. Marx also has Sun, Moon, Rahu in Bharani, and Venus in Kritika. Actually, Sun, Moon, and Rahu supported by Venus in Kritika. So, Marx transformed Hegelian idealism into materialism. Idealism was Ashwini, life and survival. Materialism is the next stage of Ashwini, which is Bharani. All of you know that Bharani deals with the material world. Again, there is always a historical dialogue between social classes. And Marx actually tries to answer this question. He also theorized the Red Revolutions. He says that the Red Revolution is a need, is a necessity for a society to grow. So, what's the Red Revolution? A child comes out by pain, the process of pain which starts from inside, the functionality of Bharani. And then he also talks about political economics. He believes that it's not religion, it's not culture, and it's not other factors, politics, which actually runs the society. It's money. Next, please. Hans Christian Andersen. He also has moon in Bharani. The whole world is a series of miracles, but we are so used to them, so call them ordinary things. Hans Christian Andersen is a very good writer. Next, please. You might have read or seen the movies or cartoons of these works of him. A little match girl, the match girl which was very cool and burns the matchsticks one by one and suffers from his own situation until she dies. Actually, that's the story of Bharani again. This is a story of suffering of Bharani, which tells by Lord Yama in the classics. And the ugly duckling. It was an ugly duck, actually, which was suffered from his identity, unless he understood, no, I'm not that. I'm a very beautiful swan which can fly. That's the painful process of self-identity, which mentioned in his work. Next, please. Okay, after knowing ourselves, it's a time to talk about rights. What is the right? Who has the right? Am I equal to others? Who has the more priority? Who has the more right? These are the questions of Kritika. That's why it's symbolized by sword. So in every culture we have such a symbols. For example, in England we have King Arthur, and in many other cultures there is a sword to actually make justice. So next please. Yes, here there are the, actually world leaders which are influenced by Kritika. Mahatma Gandhi has retrograde Jupiter in Kritika, and he was a lawyer. You know his story better than me. Saddam Hussein had Mercury in Kritika. John F. Kennedy, Jupiter and Mercury in Kritika. Che Guevara, Sun in Kritika. Stalin, Lenin, Putin, Yasser Arafat, Roosevelt, Bin Laden, Richard Nixon, which Robert Curry was talking about him today. He also has Saturn in Kritika. So we can see that many people who are involved in any sort of political activities, or people who have the ambition to correction, can be found in Kritika. Next, please. Okay. After you could establish your justice, after the justice establishes, it's the time for courtesy. It's the time for happiness. That's peace, peacefulness, art, joy, comfort, respect, honor. These are the subjects of Rohini. So Rohini people already fought, so they don't like to fight anymore. So the nakshatra of Rohini is the nakshatra of respect. That's why the most desired wife of Soma was Rohini. Next please. Yeah. There are two very nice cases, Bob Dylan and Mick Jagger. As you can see, Bob Dylan has Rohini ascendant. He's a very good singer, and he has Moon in Kritika. So his Moon in Kritika made his songs as the anthem of protest strings, several protest strings, and Bob Dylan has Moon in Kritika, Moon and Saturn in Kritika, and Sun in Rohini. And it's Jupiter in Kritika as well, Venus in Rohini as well. Well, 3 planets in Kritika and 2 planets in Rohini. So, guess what's the relation between these two? Mick Jagger actually had a magazine named Rolling Stones. And his magazine, Rolling Stones, categorized the artists to actually make a justice about the artists, about the musicians. And Bob Dylan sang a song named Rolling Stones, and Rolling Stones actually on that magazine selected that song as the in the list of 100 songs of all times. So as you can see, people with the same nakshatras can make a good friendship and good excellent relationships together, especially if their nakshatras are supported by previous nakshatra. Both his Rohini nakshatra is actually supported by Kritika nakshatra. Next please. Yes. After, after some times of peace, it's time to go and understand. It's time to go and explore. It's actually go and find the new ways. Okay, what is it? Okay, it's a long time I'm staying here, so it's a kind of curiosity. What is that? Where is this? It might be something good there. It's the times of Merigashira. So Merigashira people are somehow the scientists, people who have a good understanding and people who have a curiosity of understanding. If I'm not mistaken, I think Dr. V.V. Raman had moon in Merigashira. Next, please. Yes. Okay, there is something, but it might be dangerous. Sometimes there is something unknown which needs taking risks, needs more braveness, needs more enthusiasm to discover, needs someone who be brave enough to overcome the problems. That's the functionality of Arita. Next, please. Yes, you know all these three people. Michael Schumacher, the driver and the world champion of Formula One. Last year, I think, he had an accident in skiing. When he jumped, actually went to coma. And he's one of the fastest drivers of the world. So he likes to experience the danger. The other one is Anton de Saint-Exupéry, the writer of The Little Prince. He's also a pilot. He also, if you, have you read his book, The Little Prince? Oh, you have to read. You can see there is a little prince who travels from 7 planets, which has lots of astrological meaning behind that, travels planets and takes risks to understand, to actually discover each and every unknown world. The other one is Richard Bach. He's also a writer. His most famous work is Jonathan Livingstone Seagull. It's also a story of a bird who wants to fly and experience dangerous ways and higher highs, actually. So the Arita Nakshatra shows the braveness to improve and facing the danger. But its most important keyword is conquer and dominance. Next, please. There is a very interesting chart of a friend of mine. Carl Gustav Jung says, the creative mind plays with the object's laws. So I had a friend in Mumbai. He was a PhD in computer programming. And he was sitting all the day in the room. He couldn't move to any place. And one day, suddenly, he decided to do something. He said, I'm going to start Android programming. And I want to to create a game. So, okay. Then I learned him the basics of Android programming. And after a week, he made that game, Ladder and Snakes. So you know better than me that Lord of Ashlesha is Naga, the snake. After a week, only after 1 week, he received an invitation from USA, and now he lives in USA. So what's your idea that his mind actually activated something? He has 1, 2, 3, and 4 planets in Ashlesha. Next, please. Yeah. The next nakshatra is Punarvasu. And I think the pattern of my lecture today is based on Punarvasu. I'm going to explain. Punarvasu is symbolized by a quiver. What is a quiver? You have arrows in your bag, dragging them, shooting to the targets. Next please. So actually you have a bunch of tools with yourself and you have the patterns with yourself to fulfill your vision. You already guess what you want. So you simply shut. And in my experience, actually every pattern-based thing related to Punarvasu Nakshatra, people who are Punarvasu are really good at making patterns, setting the settings, and decorating, making the frameworks. Everything can be formulated. Every formulation actually related to Punarvasu Nakshatra. So something like origami, for example, or something like I Ching, or Chinese patterns of the skies, patterns of nakshatras. I had a student, she was working on psychology for 10 years, 30 years, and he was practicing astrology for 10 years. After she understood about nakshatras, immediately she started to match all the Jungian psychology with nakshatras, and she is a Punarvasu. Jung also, I will show his chart at the end. Next please. Yes. And that is a student of mine, actually also practicing I Ching and some divination systems. She showed me this basket she made. She writes what beautiful poem, what a good quote she has in his basket, and in times of hardness, she goes and selects one, starts to read, and gets the quote. So, sorry? Yeah, sure. So it's a quiver. Actually, it's the quiver she made for herself. Next, please. And this is the old picture of I Ching, the old I Ching system, which looks like the arrows. Next. And this one is also very wonderful. This story is also about a very successful girl. She had several breakups. She had several, bad love relationships. So she started to learn astrology, and one day she called me and said, I wrote all the nakshatras of all the guys I know. So I'm going to have a relationship with one of them. I need to select one of them. So these are all listed, and you help me to choose one. So it was his list, another quiver again. And the origami games actually she was doing. Next please. Okay, after having the patterns, actually it's time to become master on patterns. Becoming master in what we do belongs to Pushya Nakshatra. Life skills, stability, tools, instruments, and Pushya Nakshatra is a very goal-oriented nakshatra. That's why in Muhurta, we say things that started in Pushya Nakshatra can be rarely failed. Next to this. Okay, the ninth nakshatra is the last nakshatra from personal nakshatras. So it's actually the nakshatra of moving to the higher stages. Many people having planets in Ashlesha somehow actually immigrate or move to other countries. Many of them will be in a situation to talk in a language which is different from the mother language. So, in case of asking, can I immigrate or not, I always check the Ashlesha in a very important, as a very important factor. Ashlesha, Jyeshta, and Revati are really important for immigrations or for decided moves. So, it's a time to going to the better place. But where is it? Okay. The next nakshatra is Maga. Maga is symbolized by a crown. But what is that crown? That's a king which wants to have a society. So the Maga nakshatra is a need for a social life. But actually it's only a need. They need, but they want to entertain the others, they want to attach to others, they want to be in a society, but still they don't have, they only have the desire. They still don't have that authority to shape it. Next, please. That authority will be shaped in Purva Phalguni, which is the basic social life. So the subject of Purva Phalguni is a basic social life, family and friends. And the Uttara Phalguni is the advanced social life, the other half of Purva Phalguni. After you fully manage your family, it's time to go to find a job, to find something. And it's Hasta, which is about manufacturing and production. Hasta is hand. But here actually it's not only about hand, it's about making everything by your hand and using your hand perfectly. Before going to Chicha, I met a very old friend who had a tumor in his head. After a few years, he told me I had a tumor in my head. The Maratha Dasha was Jupiter. Jupiter was in Hasta. The Bhattacharjee Dasha, actually it was a Maratha Bhattacharjee Dasha. Jupiter Saturn Mahadasha. Jupiter Saturn Dasha. And both of these two were in Hasta. And I asked him, he said, I was hopeless to continue my life. I said, okay, doctor said you will die after 2 months, and I accepted. After that, he said, I went to a friend's home, and he was painting. I suddenly put the brush and started to paint over his paints. And at that time, I felt something that I want to be alive again. What I concluded that activating that nakshatra, activating Hasta by painting, gave me a new hope for having a new life. Then he started treatment, and I suggested him to do lots of other Hasta things. Then after starting the production, it feels the lack of architecture. As we are talking about the social part, it's a kind of considered a bazaar, a market, which everybody has something to sell. So it needs to be managed. The management, architecture, organization, and these things belongs to Chitra Nakshatra. Chitra Nakshatra is a nakshatra which actually deals with some organizations like police, which wants to control, protect, prevent, make safety and things like this. And being in a very controlled situation needs more flexibility, which is Swati Nakshatra. Conformity and flexibility is a very nice picture. You need to stay in a place, but still be yourself. That's the lesson of Swati. So Swati also deals with trade, commerce, growth, economy, civil rights, conformity, and public welfare. Next, please. And then it's about norms, qualities, and standards. Vishaka needs to have everything perfect. So that's why you might see that Vishaka people sometimes nagging, it's not perfect, it's not good, it's not what it should be. So after that is Anuradha's time to actually make the conventions. It's the time for science, universities, engineering, resource management, natural resources, human resources, and so on. Until it's the Jyeshta. Jyeshta is an nakshatra of globalization. It's the last nakshatra of the second part, which is the social part. Next, please. And it's the Mula, need for spirituality. Okay, the spiritual part starts with Mula. As you know, 3 points, 3 Gandhara poles in Mula, in Ashwini, in Magha, and in Mula are called Gandhanta. The starting of this Nakshatra, end of that, end of Pushya, Jyeshta, and Revati. So it's a need for spirituality. It's a time for a starting of being spiritual. Many people in Magha Nakshatra has a great ambition of spirituality, but they don't know what should they really do. Because everything can be seen spiritual for them. So they may go to faith masters, they may try different schools, different philosophies, but there is a lack of something which can be found in next nakshatra, which is Purvashada. Purvashada is a nakshatra of spiritual knowledge. But still, the next part of Purvashada, the next part of Ashada nakshatra, which is Uttarashada, is a practical spirituality. So, spiritual knowledge is very good, but it's needed to be practical. And yes, you know, Sundaramji, my master, who has Muni Pushya, and his ascendant is Uttarashada. Pushya is the nakshatra of practicality and stability, I already told, and ascendant is Uttarashada, which is a practical spirituality. Next to this. And yes, after having the practical knowledge, then it's the time of Shastras. It's a time for preservation of knowledge. No Shravana Nakshatra, which deals with the tradition of Shruti in Indian culture. And it's a time of preservation of cultural heritage, traditions, customs, and like this. And after saving, it's the time for promotion, which is Danishta, playing the drums. It's like you know, a spiritual ceremony is announcing that, okay, we have something reliable and you also can join. That's the functionality of Danishta. So, promotion, religions, sects, spiritual foundations, which is trying to easily grab people are related to this Danishta Nakshatra. So simplifying is related to Ganesha aspect. And interestingly, Shatabhishak is getting connected. But I call Shatabhishak as uncontrolled stream of energy. Because when it rains, it rains. I cannot stop it. I cannot gather all the water. I cannot actually keep it in my hand. I cannot tell it to stop. It's out of my control. So many Shatabhishak people has a very big problem. Actually, their problem is not about not having the solution, but it's about too many solutions. Because it's 100 decisions. Shatabhishak people cannot decide between 100 different solutions they might have. And this is a very nice Shatabhishak, J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien is the writer of the series of Lord of the Rings. And you know that Shatabhishak is symbolized by a ring or an empty circle. So you also might recall the massive rings in that movie, Lord of the Rings. Next, please. After that rain comes, after that energy, that big energy comes, it's the time to channelize that energy. So it's the time of self-realization. And after having that energy controlled, it's the time to transfer that energy. It's a time for metamorphosis. And finally, the last nakshatra is unity and unconditional love, eternal love. This is cycle of nakshatras. Actually, it was a new definition. I just told in a very, very short, with few small examples. And now I'm going to, next to this, yes. I'm going to check, overcheck that keywords with some very famous parts. Mahatma Gandhi, I suppose he's a Swati ascendant. It was a controversy which Richard and I was working on. So what is Nakshatra? Conformity and flexibility. Gandhi was very flexible. He never fought, he never wanted to fight, and he always prevented people from fighting. And his son was in Hasta, manufacturing and production. Do you remember that he was using the chakra for preparing the fabrics, and he used to teach people to extract the salt from the sea, and many other things. He was making lots of things, all his belongings with his own hands. That's the functionality of Hasta. And Moon was in Ashlesha, moving to next stages. I already told that. Okay. Yes, I already told that many people with Ashlesha moving to another countries, and Gandhi just went to South Africa and came like a smart man, as Sanjay said. Then he has Mars in Vishaka, which is architecture. He was a good organizer. And Mercury in Suwati, again conformity and flexibility. And Jupiter in Kritika, he was a lawyer. And he had lots of social activities, better than me. And Saturn in Jyeshtha, which is globalization. Again, Rahu in Pushya, stability and practicality. And Ketu in Shravana, preservation of knowledge. He went to the Vedas, he studied lots of different knowledges to constitute that revolution. Next, please. Carl Gustav Jung. His ascendant is Shravana, preserving of knowledge. He used to study Latin. He used to go to religious school and studied several ancient languages, went to several ancient cultures, studied alchemy, studied traditional Chinese sciences and Indian sciences as well. Indian studies he had as well. Sun in Pushya, practicality and stability. Moon in Bharani, identity I already discussed. And as you can see, all these things can be seen in his very personality. Next, Bill Gates. Everybody talked about Bill Gates. Okay, just 2 minutes. Okay. And Bill Gates' ascendant is Pushya, stability and practicality. Sun and Suwati architecture. He is a software architect. And Mars in Hasta, there is very interesting story about Mars in Hasta. Bill Gates. Go to YouTube and search Bill Gates Ice Bucket Challenge. He was invited by Mark Zuckerberg to Ice Bucket Challenge, which was putting the pouring a ice bucket on his head. And he didn't do this simply like this. He just made a frame and a rope, and first he created the maquette, and he started the architecture, and then he wooled a big frame and did this. That's the functionality of Hasta. You can enjoy on that movie. And again, he has Rahu in Jyeshtha, which is globalization, and he made his company global. Next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ehsan, for sharing your thoughts on the universal Nakshatras with us. But before we proceed, I have a very special announcement to make. We are going to present the Honorary Doctorate Award of Astrology to 5 people out here, 5 very special persons out here who have worked very hard to attain this degree of honor. So let me call them on stage. Mr. Madhavananda Goswami, Mrs. T.G. Kumuri Dharmadasa, E.R.B. Balakrishnan, Mr. Muttesh Vittal Sastri, and Mr. Shailesh Kumar Mehta. You all are requested to please report backstage as soon as possible. And also, all the lecture competition students are requested to meet and contact Mr. Shamal regarding the same. All the lecture competition students, you all are requested to meet Mr. Shamal backstage. I now request Ms. Anjali to please come forward and translate the topic which Mr. Khazeni just discussed with us, that is the universal Nakshatras in Hindi for us.
Good evening everybody. मैं इस बार मिस्टर एहसान खज़नी की यूनिवर्सल नक्षत्रास की व्याख्या का हिंदी में अनुवाद कर रही हूँ। इस लेक्चर में मैं नक्षत्रों के एक नई विषय को पेश करना चाहता हूँ जिसे मैंने यूनिवर्सल नक्षत्रास का नाम दिया। इस प्रणाली में नक्षत्र एक श्रृंखला की तरह एक दूसरे से जुड़े हैं। इस प्रणाली के कुछ सरल नियम हैं। नक्षत्र चंद्रभवन है और चंद्रमा मानसिक क्षमताओं का शासक है, इसलिए मानसिक क्षमता या किसी के जीवन के प्रवृत्तियों का इस प्रणाली द्वारा आसानी से समझा जा सकता है। हजारों सफल लोगों की व्याख्या से ये देखा गया है कि वे अपने ग्रहों के नक्षत्रों के गुणों को समेट पाए हैं। इस प्रणाली के नियम बहुत ही आसान है, लेकिन उसे जानने के पहले आज की इस कार्यशाला में मैं कुछ सरल या व्यवहारिक नियम पेश करना चाहता हूँ। इससे कुछ मुख्य नियम इस प्रकार है। प्रत्येक नक्षत्र एक सहायक के रूप में अपने अतीत नक्षत्र के कुछ स्वीकार्य गुण है। प्रत्येक नक्षत्र अपने स्वयं के महत्व को प्राप्त करने की कोशिश करता है। प्रत्येक नक्षत्र उसके अगले नक्षत्र के गुणों से कमी से ग्रस्त है। रूल नंबर 2 के अनुसार अगर दो ग्रहों को लगातार दो शुभ नक्षत्रों में रखा जाता है तो वो एक दूसरे को सकारात्मक क्षमता और ताकत और तेज देता है। इसके अलावा एक नक्षत्र में कुछ ग्रहों का होना नक्षत्र की शक्ति को बढ़ाता है और गुण को पुश करता है, पर दूसरी तरफ अगले नक्षत्र के गुणों को अभाव भी किसी के जीवन में गहराई से महसूस किया जा सकता है। पहले 9 नक्षत्र व्यक्तिगत है, दूसरे 9 नक्षत्र सामाजिक है और तीसरे 9 नक्षत्र ग्लोबल यानी कि वैश्विक है। अगर एक नक्षत्र पीड़ित है और व्यक्ति सामाजिक परिवार से संबंधित और वित्तीय समस्याओं या अन्य सीमाओं के कारण अपने रास्ते का सामना नहीं कर पा रहा है तो 10 और 19 नक्षत्र के गुणों का इस्तेमाल कर सकता है। रूल नंबर 4, इस प्रणाली को निजी व्याख्या, प्रश्न, मुहूर्त या अन्य तकनीकों में इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है। ये चार्ट के संशोधन एवं लग्न नक्षत्र ढूंढने में भी काम आता है। रूल नंबर 5, भारतीय पौराणिक कथा में नक्षत्रों के देवताओं ने 10 में से केवल एक व्यक्ति को अपने गुणों को प्रदान करने का फैसला लिया था। विश्लेषण और अनुभव हमें दिखाता है कि आम आदमी उनके नक्षत्रों में से 1 या 2 नक्षत्र गुणों का महत्व का विकास होता है, लेकिन महान और सफल व्यक्ति में सभी ग्रहों का और उनके गुणों का विकास रहता है। इसलिए इस प्रणाली में हम न केवल चंद्रमा के नक्षत्रों को देखते हैं बल्कि ग्रहों के नक्षत्रों पर भी विचार करते हैं। इस साधारण नियम और नक्षत्रों के अनुक्रमिक अर्थ का उपयोग करके आप आसानी से व्यक्ति के मानसिक स्थिति का निर्धारण कर सकते हैं और उन लक्ष्यों का अनुकरण भी कर सकते हैं जिससे वे सफल हों। धन्यवाद। शुभ संध्या।